discussion. As soon as we got into office, that is on August 6th, we decided to conduct a situational analysis of the current affairs of the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. And what we found was quite startling. I think shocking might even be a better expression. In the Minister's Secretariat and in the ministry, just 56 staff we found who are earning or who have earned in the last 5 years, just on salaries alone, over 810 million Guyana dollars. If we were to add their gratuity, which is 22.5% per month payable at the end of every 6 months, gratuity and all their allowances put together, including leave passage and so forth, that figure rises beyond $1 billion in 5 years. And that is just for 56 staff. Notably amongst those staff would be a number of political elements attached to the APNU+AFC. And many of these elements, if I were to mention their names, the public would be amazed that these were at the forefront. Many of them were at the forefront of defending the dictatorship, of standing against democracy, standing against the rule of law, and standing against our right to count every vote. Names like Ganesh Mahipal, Randolph Critchlow, who was on that show with Jones and I think Duncan. He has been one of the hosts on the show as well. These guys were all my staff. And the startling thing about what has happened too is that when I investigated of their work, there is not an iota of evidence that they would have performed their duties to the benefit of the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. And there was no evidence that they actually used their offices, having been paid, millions of dollars over 5 years to correct the lives of people across our country. We find that outrageous, and insofar as the ministry has proceeded, I think, it's public knowledge now that we were able to terminate their services, and we intend to move forward in a professional, dynamic way with staff who are conscious about the needs of our citizens and who are willing and able to work towards satisfying those needs and wants of our citizens.
Sir, the numbers you are calling, they're pretty staggering. Leonard, Minister has said here that almost $1 billion, maybe more, because they are yet to quantify fully everything, all the bits and pieces. But if it's $1 billion over 5 years for 56 staff, that amounts to $17.5 million on average per person.
You did some calculation on that?
You take a billion and you divide by 56. It's an amazing figure. And Leonard, I would remind you, when you had Mr. Mahipal on the daytime show, I did ask the gentleman, are you a paid servant of the state? Himself and his colleague. And Minister is telling us that this gentleman, along with Mr. Critchlow and many others, were actually being paid by the state. In his case, Minister, pardon me for segueing this conversation, but is being paid by your ministry, or was being paid by your ministry, to do political work, not work relating to regional development or local government, but pure politicking. And that's an amazing figure of $17.5 million per person for politicking, Leonard. Is Glenlal paying you anything like that?
I can tell you that my salary is unbelievably low. Nothing compared to that. And don't forget, Yog, this would have come just not too long ago over the weekend with news that we have used taxpayers' dollars to pay for court cases that should be paid by a political party or coalition.
Correct. So Minister, if we can get back to some of your numbers, And allow me to ask you in the following way, sir. So we have paid in wages and salaries and allowances and gratuity. Ladies and gentlemen, this is people receiving money, physical money. This does not include their benefits in terms of cars, their benefit in terms of fuel for the cars, their benefit in terms of any other ad hoc allowance, their benefits in terms of petty cash withdrawals or usage of petty cash, their benefits for drinks and coffee and uniform and all of that. Am I right, sir?
Yes, you are correct. And a substantial amount of that was actually paid during the 5 months of their defense of the dictatorship and their refusal to adhere to the rule of to the will of the people. Critchlow was earning about $306,000 per month. Mahipal, on contract, wow. Mahipal is a member of the pensionable establishment. He's a staff of the pensionable establishment of the government, earning about $221,000 per month. And that is outrageous. There are many, Carol Nurse, Lachmin Aziz, that activist from Bushlot on the west coast of Berbice. We have Oscar Clark, the former General Secretary of the PNC, with allowances in excess of $450,000 per month. When I found out, I was told that he goes to the ministry for 3.5 days per week. I have not seen any evidence, not even a dotted I, of the type of work that they would have done. You find names like Donald Ains, who has been a minister under the PNC in the 80s, 340-something thousand plus per month. Ernest Elliott from Region 4, who was a former MP of APNU+AFC, same figure, 340-something thousand dollars per month. You'd find one guy, a technical coordinator, was earning over $500,000 per month. It's outrageous, outrageous, outrageous.
Outrageous indeed. And Minister, go on.
Sorry. And we intend to pursue to the end, the circumstances of their engagement and the work that they would have, or quote unquote, claim to have produced during the course of the 5 years. I see this as a $1 billion heist on the treasury by these individuals, and I think that they must be held accountable for it.
And Minister, if I may, did you...
Minister...
Sorry, but if I may ask the Minister this as we on this topic here, did you try to call them in, or did any of your staff try to call in these people and says, what were you doing at this ministry over the last 5 years?
Well, I've spoken to some of the REOs. Most of them were dispatched to the regions, and many of the REOs indicated to me that some of these guys did not have any evidence of their work. They were actually not even reporting to the regional administration in some of these regions. And so at the ministry per se as well, there was no clear supervision of what they were doing. And that is why you'd find persons like those names that I mentioned. There are many more who would have been on the political campaign trail, who would have been political activists. And the most egregious thing about all of this that I find is that these are the people, our taxes were paying them to run an illegal, unlawful, unconstitutional government, especially since the passage of the no confidence vote in December 2018.
2018. Minister, do you know, as a collective government, as a collective PPPC government, do you know if any efforts are being made to collate the collective draining of the treasuries by these political activists? Because what we have heard, Minister Gail Teixeira was here last Monday and she called some of the very names from another ministry. I think Mr. Anil Nandalal had called some names from his ministry. And so we have found that persons were double dipping, triple dipping, quadruple dipping from various ministries. Do you know whether there is any effort being made to collate, to bring them, do a reconciliation to say, okay, Mr. Leonard Gildari, his total collection per month from the government was X?
Yes, naturally, that is being done, and we would have to audit their performance. We would have to also appraise their performance over the last 5 years. And I think that we owe it to the taxpayers of Guyana, and we owe it to the law-abiding citizens of our country to make this information available so that they themselves can determine what course of action need to be pursued.
And
Wow.
and
Great.
if I may
And sir,
ask,
my last question on that
okay,
part then.
go ahead.
Go on, Leonard.
Yeah, what I really want to ask the minister
Go on.
now, because for me
No,
I'm asking on behalf of Gildari now. What assurance would this government give that we're not going to see a report that's job for the boys or the girls in this new administration?
Well, as you are aware, Leonard, we have campaigned on having certain ethical standards in our administration and in the dispensation of our government. And naturally, you will find that we will be seeking professional people. We will be seeking people who are non-partisan. And I think most importantly, we'd be seeking officers of the government and of the state who are genuine in the development of our country. And in the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development that I can speak for, that is how we intend to pursue. Up until now, I have not yet been able to put together my own secretariat. I don't expect my secretariat to go beyond 4 or 5 persons. Vulcan's secretariat had all of these individuals that I mentioned to you.
Right. Minister, do you, the persons who were occupying the various offices prior to your taking over, have they vacated the offices? Have the political appointees been terminated? If there were persons that were occupying government houses under your ministry, have they been vacated, or are there still problems there?
Insofar as I'm aware, they have all vacated. The REO of Region 3, the former REO of Region 3, had indicated to me that she had written to Mahipal quite over a week and a half ago for him to also vacate the house in Region 3. Mahipal's position is a community development officer and
Wow.
state in Region 3. I also heard he was earning quite a substantial amount from the Guyana National Newspapers Limited, Chronicle.
Right.
There is one member or former member of parliament from Region 10 who apparently was the advisor to the minister as well, but was paid through the Ministry of the Presidency. Also, a substantial, a few $100,000 per month.
Who's that person?
So, would we be wrong to say it was really a payoff for the boys, the political boys and girls, basically?
Not be wrong, because over the last 2 weeks we have been out, practically the entire cabinet, including our president, including our vice president, including our prime minister. We have been out across this country, and the amount of money that was spent in the last 5 years in 6 budgets, it is difficult to see the work that money was supposed to, they claim that money was spent on. Naturally, in our ministry, I'm only telling you of a few, 56, earning $1 billion. I'm certain that in the other ministries, it is billions more. And that is the nature of how the past regime managed our country. And that is why you find that they were so, they were willing to sacrifice their professionalism, integrity, and defend all the wrongs that they defended in the last year and a half.
Right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you heard it. 56 persons to be exact were earning about $1 million US per year from just one ministry. And, if you look at the number of ministries that certain persons have been double dipping, triple dipping, quadruple dipping, and drawing money from all various places, persons have also been beneficiaries of grants, and even though they were public officers and paid public officers, they were beneficiary of grants, and who knows what. As the days progress, we'll certainly have more of this. Minister, my last question to you on that note. Let us just use Mr. Leonard Gildari's name as an example. If Leonard Gildari is one of these 56, is your ministry ready to release his employment documents to the media?
Yes, we would be willing to release, but we are still collating that information at this point in time, and I'm certain that in due course the public must know who these culprits are, and we intend to make that information available. I've hinted
Right. There,
some of these names and what their conditions are,
right.
and in due course we will also
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
And Yogi,
The
if
reason
I may.
I'm asking you that, sir, is that it is taxpayers' money, as you rightly mentioned. And the second reason, remember, it is the media that helped that has been good at putting together some of these things. For example, if we go back to the 5 horrible months, remember it was the media that brought together all of these people who the commissioner of police said were overseas and were not supposed to vote. Remember, Leonard? So the media is quite good at getting these things. And I would like to urge that as early as possible that the documents could be released. I think I, for one, would certainly love to see some of those, because I would like to see, Minister, you see this thing about these payouts. It is not just Guyanese people have to realize it's not just about the payouts. It's about the total mockery that has been made of not the PPP that was opposing the APNU government, but is being the total mockery that was made of every single taxpayers in this country. It's every one of us that has paid the Critchlows and the Mahipals and all of these people, ladies and gentlemen, and they must held accountable for using our money. And this is why I'm passionate about wanting to ensure that these documents are released to public. Sorry, Leonard, you were going to ask a question.
Yes,
Before you go, Leonard, before you go, there's also a name called Andrew Weeks, a communication officer. I think he's a member of the media. He was also on my payroll. Well, the ministry's payroll, earning in excess of $200,000 per month.
Oh, that's interesting, because I think he was one of them that was calling for a boycott of Kaiser News. I would like to see that gentleman. In fact, I want him to come on radio here. There's a guy that was doing some racially divisive statement, including wanting to boycott Kaiser News and Starbuck News and a couple of the independent media. Well, Minister, I'm interested in something else. There is, after the ministry would have parted company with these individuals, there would have been some costs attached. Do we have any idea, let's say for those 56 staffers, how much that would be? Because obviously you got to pay them off and so on.
Well, Leonard, we govern via the law, and their termination has been lawful, and whatever they're owed, they will be so paid. But insofar as I'm aware, the contracts that they have allow them a month's notice, and we have since done all of that. So I do not envisage that they will seek to pursue any more recovery. And if they seek to do so, then I think that that will make it even worse in terms of their hunger for the state largesse.
Correct.
And
let me just say this, Leonard. Let me just say this. I'm sorry, Leonard.
Yeah.
In answering to one of our viewers, Natasha Teddy, Natasha, you're absolutely spot on. Look, public servants need to be paid more. Nobody will argue with that. Teachers need to be paid more. Nobody would argue with that. Policemen needs to be paid more. But here is what the problem is. The real public, this is what the minister is saying, the real public servants, the one who are actually sweating, giving their labor in exchange for their job, they are not getting this money. It is the political appointees that are coming and getting their super salaries. And why we are looking at $200,000, you think? Because one of the gentlemen, for example, whose name minister has called, has received $200,000 here, has received another couple of $100,000 from another ministry, has received another couple of $100,000 from another place, and has still received another set from another one. So they have quadruple dip from different places. Meanwhile, teachers are not paid, policemen are not paid, the people who are in ministry working hard are not getting salary. And guess what? All of these people were earning all of this money when this country was under starvation for 5 months with COVID-19. Children couldn't get meals to eat. People couldn't get food. The private sector, private individuals like us had to put hampers together to share out when some of these barefaced thieves were stealing money out of the treasury. And I have no apologies to make by calling them barefaced thieves, stealing from the treasury while people in this country are starving. Sorry to be carrying it on, but Leonard, this is a touchy subject, and it is about emotions because people in this country deserve better.
Well, I've seen some
Sorry,
argument,
Leonard, go on to your
yes.
question.
I've seen arguments, Yog, that public servants who would have been sitting in positions that is parallel to what the minister would have alluded to there. It's not fair to them. They've argued that in terms of upward mobility and so on, this thing would have a big issue with their entire mind frame in how they would see you doing the same job or not even doing the same job as is coming out now, and you getting more money than me. But I want to ask the minister, because somebody's asking it here. Minister, have you examined or have you sought legal advice whether the people of Guyana could recover these monies for work not being done?
Well, Leonard, the people of Guyana deserve to know what has happened to the expenditure that they stand in this country. And I would think that the Attorney General, him being as learned as he is, would be in a better position to answer that question. But as a taxpayer myself, I would like to know what has happened, and I would like condign action to be taken against those who trespass against transparency and accountability.
Correct. And you know what else is important too, Leonard and Minister? I mean no personal insult to these people. This is a matter of taxpayers' funding and taxpayers' money. Quite a number of these persons, Leonard, will be in Parliament and will be drawing down a parliamentary allowance and a parliamentary salary and a parliamentary pension. And you know, the rot continues. And that is probably one of the most glaring examples of total disregard for people in this country.